get to know a little bit more about your life in Nicaragua itself and how was things during that time. And the first
Okay.
question that I have is how is cultural adjustment? The thing that took you a while to get used or adapt yourself while living there.
Yeah, great question. I think that, culture shock, I write about this in my book, right? I think the big things we kind of expect and we're ready to handle them. There is one big thing, and I'll come back to it in a second, but for most people, and for me too, it wasn't the big things. Like, you're ready, like, okay, I got to deal with this. So we're going to deal with it, right? It's the ankle biters. It's the tiny little tees that just like, and one of them that drove my wife nuts with the parking attendants. You have these guys that basically have whistles and flags and they're trying to get you into a parking spot, right? The reality is most of these people, in fact, I would say probably all of them, they've never driven a car in their entire life. So here they are whistling and waving flags, trying to get you to park and whatever. And they've never done it. And so and they get in your way and whatever. And so something like that, just like after a while, you're just like, yeah, whatever. But it's such a little thing. It's such a tiny thing. But the big things, the one big thing that was, I still don't, okay, I'll say what it is. Like, class system. I know Europe has a class system to some degree, right? The US sort of does, but at least, officially we don't have a class system, right? Anyway, but the US has really held itself out as a meritocracy, right? That you get ahead in life by what you do, what you're good at, what you accomplish, right? And just because your last name is something, right, doesn't mean you're better or whatever, right? But in Latin America, there's really a class system, right? Where there's a certain set of families that kind of, run everything, own most things, whatever. And then there's a tiny, that's actually a moderate middle class. It's growing, a moderate middle class. And then a lot of, poor people, right? And what was hard for me to first intellectually understand was, how could somebody think they're better than somebody else, right? Because of their last name, which they do. My last name is something, and so I'm better than you, right? I mean, I don't understand that. Coming from a merit system, I'm like, well, what does your last name have to do with anything? Like, you were born with it, right? So there's that, right? But the thing that was even harder for me to understand was how somebody who was in the poor class could say that those people were better than they were, right? I'd be like, wow. I mean, okay. I mean, so intellectually, I think, I'm kind of like, I understand it intellectually. I've read books about it. Like, I kind of get it. But here in my heart, so I don't get it, right? I don't get it. I understand it, but I don't get it. I think that particular issue was a hard one on the big level for me. And it took me a long time to kind of get there. But my experience has really shown that it's really the small ankle biter things that really are the more troublesome adjustment issues than the big ones.
The little things, yeah.
Yeah.
Second one that I have is social life. How did you meet new friends or meet new people
Yeah.
in Nicaragua during that days?
Two easy answers. One, we went with a 2-year-old school. We dropped her into a school. We met other parents with kids, that. But the other thing was I joined the Rotary Club. And so immediately met, I don't know, 30, business people in Managua, many of whom had kids. So there was the kid component too, but the professional relationship. So I'm a big fan of immediately joining a club or an association, like a service organization, right? Or by the way, I do a lot of work in Panama. Panama has far more clubs. Like, if you're an actor, like you love to act or you love to sing, or maybe you're gay, and so they have gay groups, they have hiking groups, they have card clubs, they have tennis groups, right? They have Rotary and other service organizations, right? So there's so many organizations and activities that are available. I'm a huge fan of, as soon as you get there, join a service organization first, but then get involved in different clubs or activities that you like or you think you might like, because you will meet other people. And the truth is that so many people speak English, right? English is the language of TV and music. I mean, there's other language. I get that, right? But my experience has been, I have found, I was in Mongolia this summer. Last summer, I went to Mongolia. I expected nobody to speak English. I had I don't speak Mongolian. I had no problems getting around in English. And so I think if you're an English speaker, you can go and join clubs or activities and find other English speakers native, maybe they're Panamanian or Nicaraguan or Mongolian, whatever, right? But you can find that. And so joining those types of clubs and activities are critically important for building a new social network.
Makes sense. I will skip the third one because your response it was about languages actually. So you're ready to talk about it. I will jump to the next one, which is basically cost of living. Like in comparison to the US, is it much lower? What is surprisingly cheap? What is surprisingly expensive? A little bit of an overview of what is the cost of.
Yeah, I for example, let me use four quick countries: Belize, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. Costa Rica is by far the most expensive. Nicaragua is the least expensive. Belize and Panama are in the middle. If you're in an urban environment, if you're in San Jose, for example, you might have a lifestyle that's 20 or 30% less expensive than the US. Say, not New York, not San Francisco, but any other kind of Midwest city in the United States, right? Cost of living's tough because even in the US, it varies a lot, right? Or in Europe, right? But anyway, figure, Costa Rica, 20, 30% less if you're in an urban environment. Managua, maybe half, right? If you're rural, if you're outside these urban areas, your cost of living can go. I mean, I would say in Nicaragua, you could live on a third of what it would cost to live in a rural environment in the United States. It's significantly less expensive. The thing that's surprising to most people is, I'd never had a maid in my life. Whatever, moved to Nicaragua and we got a maid and we have a gardener that works half time, right? Takes care of everything. Like, talk about a quality of life enhancement. I mean, like, your quality of life when you have no chores goes up unbelievably, but your cost to have those people doing those things is very, very low. And so it's this weird inverse relationship between, because I think there's a paradox. People think my quality of life, if I want my higher quality of life, I have to spend more. But if you move to the developing world, whether it's Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa, right? If you move to the developing world, your quality of life can go up substantially. At the same time, your cost of living drops dramatically. It's a weird paradox.
Next one that I have, it's finding a home. I suppose you would suggest one of your communities, but if you would need to do it outside of that.
No, Mark, I'm very pragmatic. Look, there are millions of people buying property outside their home countries, right? I mean, we need a few hundred sales a year, right? And so just like the pizza thing, right? If I have a pizza and the only thing I sell is pepperoni, but people want other flavors, like, send them down to a pizza parlor next door because there to get you vegetarian or whatever, right? No, I believe that different strokes for different folks. Here's the simplest advice, and it's in my book. People can't believe I write this. We're a development company. We build and sell and, develop and sell real estate, right? In my book, I can't remember, it's early in the book, right? Rent before you buy. Rent before you buy, right? People can't believe I put that out there, like, because it kind of goes against my business, so to speak. But here's the reality. If you rent somewhere for 6 months to a year, 6 months is probably enough, but a year is okay too, right? But you rent for 6 months to a year, you will know if you like where you are or not, right? And my point is if you come to one of my communities and you rent a house for 6 months and you like it, or a year, whatever, and you like it, yeah, great, buy a house, we'll build you a house, whatever. But if you don't like it, thank God you did not buy a home in my community, because you're just going to be upset and miserable. And I don't want that in my community. And none of your neighbors want that either, right? So I think renting before you buy is the single most important thing you can do as a potential home buyer overseas.
Makes a lot of sense. Good tip. Next one that I have, it's living like a local. I mean, you're never fully a local, but what one thing that you would say you do in Nicaragua to blend in?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that before. I got to ponder that. I think one of the things that we really enjoyed was traveling around the country. We would get in our car on the week because we had no chores, right? We had a maid and a gardener. So we had no chores. So every weekend, we would get in the car and we'd say, where do we want to go? And we'd just get in the car and we'd just drive somewhere, to a butterfly farm, to a waterfall out in the middle of nowhere, go to the camp at the beach and see the baby turtles or whatever, right? And I think that those were the kinds of things that really got us out into areas where we saw no other foreigners. Like, we were You were on dirt roads that kind of didn't look like they were roads, right? And you would bump into people at the waterfall, and they were always Nicaraguan. Like there were no other gringos there, right? So we became local in the sense that we found places, we did things that put us into environments where we were the only non-Nicaraguan. And that was by choice because we wanted to do those things. But I think there are other ways you could kind of go local as well. But that was our methodology. Yeah.
Next one that I have, it's the work life. How would you describe the work culture in Nicaragua?
Yeah, I mean, the country is a lot of different things, just like any country has different areas and different cultures. But, Managua, the capital city where our offices are, our resort property is about an hour west of Managua on the coast, right? So on the Pacific. But the main, airport in the main city is Managua. It's a strong work culture. People arrive on time generally. And it was actually a great place to find a talent, and we still do. We still have a ton of talent in Nicaragua where we outsource or insource. For example, our architectural and engineering services. A lot of our so if we're doing projects in other countries and we need engineering or architectural stuff, that all comes back to Nicaragua. We've got incredible people there who do that work, and then we ship it back to the other countries. Right? Great talent. And really a great work culture. Yeah.
You touch upon the next one a little bit, grab a car and going around, but how do you get around? Like there is a public transport system at all? You really require having a private car?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of. I mean, look, I'm from the U.S. I want a car. Give me a car.
I saw it coming. Yeah.
Now, I grew up in the car. When I was 16, that on my 16th birthday, I went to get my driver's license. I mean, like the car culture in the U.S. is so big. But one of the things about the developing world and I would say Latin America, we don't really have trains. We don't have whatever that kind of subways and stuff. I mean, a little bit like Panama now has a subway, but it's limited. It goes from like one point to another. It doesn't really have sidelines and stuff. So buses are a way to get around. I've done a little bit of bus travel in the region, and it actually is very efficient, mostly point to point, like going from Managua to San Jose to Panama City, right? Like the express buses and things. But they got little buses. I think as an American, you probably want a car just because it gives you the flexibility to go where you want, when you want, leave when you want. And I think that's meaningful. What I would call the sophisticated public transportation system just simply does not exist.
I see. Next one, I don't know how it works at all, but healthcare. Hopefully you didn't touch it much, but how does it work?
But we did. I mean, we lived there for, for 14 years, right? I mean, here's the thing about healthcare. The public system is okay, but not great. The private system is phenomenal and so inexpensive. It's crazy. As someone from the U.S., our healthcare is outrageously expensive. The insurance premiums are just insane. And so a country like Canada, the insurance premiums are lower, but there's a wait. I hear that. I'm not Canadian, but I hear that people have to wait a long time to get a doctor's appointment or get an x-ray or whatever. I don't know Europe very well at all. The thing that I loved about Nicaragua, but I've also had some stuff done in Mexico. I broke my arm in Mexico a few years ago, and I've had stuff done in Panama over the years, right? Is that literally you can walk into a hospital, but usually the doctor's offices are in a hospital complex, right? So you're not actually going in the hospital, but you go to the doctor's complex, it's right at the hospital. Like you can literally call and walk in and like, oh, you need an x-ray. Well, here, let's go get you an x-ray. Boom. Oh, it's $30. Okay, get out your American Express card. $30. Here's your x-ray, right? Like, I mean, it's so affordable and so like right now, it's immediate. It's phenomenal. And the quality of care is world-class. I mean, the private care in certainly the developing world, but Thailand, I'm not familiar with Thailand and India. I mean, they're doing medical tourism now. They're doing heart transplant, heart surgeries, and like real stuff, big stuff, scary stuff, right? In Thailand and in India and other countries. So I think the idea of medical care needs to be kind of tweaked a little bit. Private care overseas can be phenomenal. It usually is phenomenal. And it is also, in most cases, very affordable. Yeah.
I have three more. The next one is the one everyone hates normally.
All
But
right.
I want to hear, like, from bureaucracy perspective, paperwork, visas, permits, and so on.
Yeah. It can be bureaucratic. What I've found is so for example, at the immigration office, right? If you're a foreign resident, you have to get the residency card and blah, 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 right? Literally across the street from the immigration office, there are a whole bunch of tents. I mean, they're like tents. I mean, they're not like, this kind of tent. They're, just they're
Yeah, the
shade.
military ones.
Yeah, the shade tents, right? And underneath, people have set up computers and printers, and they're lawyers. They're actually lawyers' offices, right? And if you need anything done inside the immigration office, yep, you can go in there and you can do it yourself. And good luck. God bless you. See you next Thursday, because you're not coming out. Okay. Or you can go across the street and you can talk to one of these guys, and literally they'll say, okay, we'll come back at, can you come back at 4 o'clock today? No, I'm busy. Okay, come back at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll go in together. And literally at 10:15, you're done. You walk back out, it's over, right? And so what I have found, and I talk about this in my book. I even have a picture of the people across the street in my book, right? Pay somebody to do it for you. Pay them. Like, this is what they do. They know everybody inside, right? And so, like, give this, whatever. And it's usually so inexpensive. And if you even value your time at $20 an hour, which I hope most people would value their time at $20 an hour, like, it's the best money you will ever spend, just simply on a time value of money. So yes, it's bureaucratic. Yes, it can be a pain in the butt. Hire somebody to do it for you. Yeah.
Nice. The next one, it's the best and the worst. What is the best part of living there? What is the worst thing of living there?
I'll start with the worst. The worst thing about living in a developing country for most people, it wasn't really the worst for me, but it is the worst for many people. And that is that you actually have to see poverty up close all the time, right? I mean, I think it's true. I was in Thailand not long ago, and in Cambodia, right? I mean, you see poverty up close. It's right there. Like in the US and in Europe, yeah, there are neighborhoods and cities you probably don't go to because it's the poor area, right? So you don't really have to see poverty. But in the developing world, you got really nice houses and cardboard shacks, and they're right next to each other, right? And I think that's the worst thing for most people, because it can really tear your heart out, right? You see kids struggling and parents and whatever, and it's rough. I think that's the worst thing. I think the best thing is the exact opposite, that when you're in an environment like that, you have the ability to make a meaningful difference in people's lives for very little money, very little resources, right? You can make a tremendous impact in people's lives. I'm not an advocate of giving money to somebody on the corner. I think that's usually there's a big bully around the corner. It takes all the little kids' money, right? So I don't think that's the way to do it. But getting involved with, Rotary or Lions or a service, a faith-based organization, whatever it is, right? And so the worst, which is the poverty up close, which really can be heart-wrenching, right, is actually the best, because it gives us the opportunity to do something wonderful for other people, and in ways that probably in the US, Europe, Canada, we really just can't. So I think the best and the worst are very, very linked.
Right. Nice. The last one that I have, it's the top tip. If someone who is listening today here willing to move to Nicaragua right now, what would be your one-line advice?
Well, I would be very surprised if anybody listening would consider Nicaragua, because Nicaragua has been so, like, slammed in, like, just the press, right? I mean, it just gets such bad public relations. My one top tip is forget what the media is telling you about Nicaragua. Forget about what the U.S. State Department website, travel alert, orange alert or whatever they call it, right? I mean, forget all that. It's just garbage. It's absolute garbage. Like, get on a plane and go to Nicaragua. Buy plane tickets to Nicaragua for a week and see it with your own eyes, right? Like that. That to me is the tip for Nicaragua. And here's the reality. The people who do it are blown away. I just had a group of people there last week, and they could not believe. They were like, oh my God, it's nothing like I thought it was. I'm like, yeah, no kidding. It's not what you thought it was, because everyone's been telling you this garbage. They fill in your head with garbage. Go see it with your own eyes. And Mark, I know this is really a show about expat, but I want to add one sophisticated business concept here because it matters a lot to anybody who's buying a home. When you have a difference between perception and reality, right? The perception of Nicaragua is that it's horrible, dangerous, violent, right? And then you've got a reality that's very different, very nice, pleasant, like really a wonderful place. When you have a gap like that between what's perceived and what's reality, that gap in the financial world is called arbitrage. That's arbitrage. It's an information gap. And what arbitrage in the investment world means is money. That's money. So if you went to Nicaragua and you went to Costa Rica, they're neighbors, so at one point they're touching, right? But if you just said 50 miles on one side of the border in Costa Rica, 50 miles on the other side of the border in Nicaragua, you had identical properties. The price difference would be 3 to 5 times different. 3 to 5 times different. So an oceanfront house in Costa Rica, right, is probably $1.5 million, $2 million. An oceanfront house in Nicaragua is $400,000-$500,000. So what's that? 3 times different, 4 times different? I don't know. Do the math in my head, but you see the difference. I mean, 4 times different, right? 400 versus 1.5 or 1.6, right? I'm sorry, like that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money difference. And again, it's only an information difference. It's the same house, it's the same ocean, it's the same sun, it's the same glass, the same concrete, the same faucets, the same. The only difference is the word Nicaragua and Costa Rica. And so there is an arbitrage situation right now, which means as an expat, not as an investor, as an expat, you can have the same quality of life, an awesome quality of life for like a way less cost of acquisition. That's the arbitrage. So the one tip I always tell people is go see it for yourself. Forget the garbage people have been filling your head with. Go see it for yourself. And if you agree, you're gonna get this big chunk of money either in, as an investment or in a savings if you're buying a home for yourself.
Nice. Thanks a lot for all the responses.